Hi everyone, welcome along today. So I've had a query from one of my subscribers out there who says that he has a Hall radiator, a small one, and it's got valves on it that he can't turn. All the other valves on the radiators in the rest of his house has got thermostatic rad valves, and can he fit a thermostatic rad valve to that radiator? Now, there lies some problems and to something that I think you should all quite know about, that's worth knowing before you do anything. So let's take a look at why this problem can be a big problem. So first of all, I'd like to show you one of these. This is called a bypass valve and it has a special function. So let me show you what that is. Here then we have a much better drawing than I can usually draw. Mine are pretty awful drawings, my sketches. And this is a combi boiler, and as you can see the flow and return pipes go round the radiators of your house. It's just free shown in this. So what happens normally when it's running? Well, normally if you've got thermostatic rad valve there, one there on each radiator, what would happen if they will reach temperature and the boiler was still running? Now the boiler would greatly heat up, the pump would still keep running and would eventually burn the pump out, even though the boiler would tell it to turn off because it got too hot. It would cause proper damage to the pump. So what happens, we put a bypass valve in, it shows it here. Now if that's the flow and return, you can see there's a looped piece of pipe that goes between there, but governed by this automatic bypass valve, which has the function of automatically sensing the pressure drop. You can set it so that the boiler manufacturer gives you a rating on a lot of cases that you set it to actually start bypassing. So if all these rads went off because the thermostatic valve on each one has reached temperature, this opens up and allows the boiler to still run. Now quite a lot of boilers these days are low content water boilers, and you need this bypass because it allows the boiler to run on afterwards. You might hear it still running and think, well, that's strange, the thing's gone off, but I can still hear the boiler running, and that is the pump running to allow the boiler to cool down, and that's very much a requirement. But as I say, today's modern combis will have built-in, but you will need to check the specs on that to see if you have, because if you haven't, you will need that, and which explains why on older combi boiler systems you will find a rad in a hall or upstairs in a bathroom with no way of turning the radiator off, because that allows whatever happens to the other radiators, if they're switched off, for that one in the hall is in this case to keep running and allow it to act as a bypass valve so that the pump doesn't burn out. So it's a reason that it's like that. So, and also a lot of times the one in the hall is the one that kind of governs the stat, because a lot of thermostats are put in the hall and they want the hall radiator to stay on simply as well because that governs the temperature in your house by the thermostats, to be able to sense the heat there to govern the rest of the house. We don't want you to mess around with that one. Here now is an F&E system, and this is a crude picture sent to me by a subscriber, and wanted to know whether this red handled gate valve here would turn the central heating off. No was the answer. Now the reason I'm showing it is because this is a very crude kind of bypass valve. This is the sort we would fit in years ago before the bypass valve was even kind of out there. What we would do is come off the flow, which is the flow pipe coming from the boiler, and we'd tee off, put the gate valve in there and then join it back up to the return, which is the same as I've showed you on the combi boiler. It's the same flow and return, and what we do is open this valve just probably a turn or two, that's about it. And so that what would happen then is all the rads went off, the flow could still come out of here down through the gate valve and back into the tank, so it would keep the circulation going and keep the boiler going. Nowadays on a more modern system it obviously would not be like that. You'd have a bypass valve like the one I showed you there earlier. Well, I hope that tries to explain it a little bit for you, why if you do have fixed valves on a rad that you can't actually shut off, why it's like that, because you may not have a bypass. But remember, that may have been a few years back, and if you've had your system changed say to a new combi boiler with the bypass that's already fitted in the boiler, then you can comfortably change that valve. But if the valve you want to change is a hall one and your thermostat is located in a hall, then I would advise against changing it at all, because as I say earlier, that would make all your system shut down if the hall got too hot on a thermostatic rad valve. That would be there kind of for another purpose. But definitely if you've got one, say, in a bathroom that's acting as the bypass rad, we call them, then you could comfortably change that to a thermostatic rad valve, as long as you see one of these fitted, or a Crude system like that gate valve. And do make sure, by the way, if you've got the gate valve one that I showed you that is turned on, make sure it's not shut down. Someone's played around it thinking that they could turn the water off by shutting this thing down and then forgetting that it's down. I went to a house years ago and the pumps kept burning out, and that was when I realised that this gate valve had been closed by the tenant of the house, thinking that he could drain the central heating out with it, but never turned it back on. It happens. So there we are, just a little one on that. Hope it helps you out again. It's just more of a descriptive thing than anything, but something I think you should all know about. Anyway, that's about it. Thanks for watching once again. Keep tuned to my channel. I'll keep finding what tips I can for you as they come along. So if you've got anything out there that you're concerned about or you need answers to, you can always give me a tip and I'll try and get a video done on whatever it is. Okay, that's about it. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.